This week, we're going to explore the use of a SWOT analysis as a tool to look at the broader strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats of our college, university, or even a department or division within the college or university. And you're going to be given two clients. One is Indiana State University and the other is Appalachian State University. And this is an individual assignment, meaning that you are an individual consultant working for a consulting firm, and this is on your desk and your responsibility to do. So I'm interested in seeing how each of you does in terms of applying the SWOT analysis. So again, you're the higher education consultant. You will research and develop a SWOT analysis, and you will write a brief narrative for each. Again, the message is here, an individual assignment. So I'm going to ask you that you each take charge as though you're working independently for a consulting firm. So here's what the expectations are. One is review the video from Indiana State, and that will be in your Blackboard module, and it's about 1 hour. I would really encourage you to block out that hour time and listen to it carefully and take notes as you're listening. Feel as though you're actually participating in this particular enrollment seminar. And actually, it's a workshop on strategic enrollment management. So that'll take you 1 hour. Read and analyze the Appalachian State article. It's a pretty straightforward read, kind of interesting, but it'll take you probably an hour to read it very carefully and thoroughly. And then lastly, what you're going to do is complete a SWOT analysis for each of the two clients. And each one of them will have a separate PowerPoint and a separate Word document. So again, two clients, that means 2 PowerPoint slides, 1 for each client, and 2 Word documents properly labeled with your name and the client, 1 for each. The Word document is going to include a synopsis of what you thought of the client's content. So it's whether it be the video or the article. And then 2 would be your suggestions, your opinions, your recommendation regarding the client's content and what they're saying regarding their STEM program or their growth strategy. So I was looking at the time commitment for this individual assignment, and there's going to be 2 hours of either video viewing and reading, but it's estimated this assignment will require about 4 additional hours, I would say, of preparation, requiring about 6 hours in total of your involvement. And this is really in alignment with the expectations for a 3-hour graduate course, presuming that there's 3 hours of outside study. So I just wanted to give you the heads up for this. And similarly, because I gave you that extra day after Easter, I will do the likewise for this assignment, and that you'll have until Tuesday the 21st at midnight. And each student in the class should be sending me the 2 PowerPoint slides and 2 Word documents, and those should be organized based upon each of the 2 separate clients. What is a SWOT analysis? It is used across business, and that is absolutely 100% sure, but it also is a very popular tool in higher education, and it's very helpful for us as we start to explore what type of data strategies are we using. We like to fall back oftentimes on SWOT analysis to do a quick review of where we're at. So it's used to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a university, college, division, or department. And once we start getting this assessment, it's useful for us to help us to advance clear-cut strategic goals on how we're going to advance the organization. And then it helps us to put in a system of feedback and in the development of our KPIs, or our key performance indicators, as we talked about earlier in the term. If you look at the SWOT analysis here in this slide, it's showing you that what's this about? It's strengths and weakness, and those are always internal to the organization or the college. They're not external. And oftentimes students, even graduate students, may get these confused with opportunities or threats. Opportunities and threats are always outside of the organization's control, and it's not anything internal. And I'll give you some examples of that. If you look at the opportunities and threats, there's political, economic, social, and technological. And we talked about this earlier in the term, but the best way to remember, I think, is PES plus C is like political, economic, social, cultural, technological. Now they don't have the C in this slide, but I'm throwing that in, and that's competitive. We've got to understand what are our competitors doing in order to make our appropriate strategies. And here again, I showed you another slide, just giving a little more detail. As you look at this video for Indiana State and or read the article for Appalachian State, there'll be terms and little comments that'll come by, and you'll say, wait a minute, that seems to me something beyond the scope of the institution. So if they're mentioning about the decline in federal or state funding, well, you can put that in as a threat if we frame it in that way. Or in the economic realm, they talk anything about wealth distribution, they talk anything about interest rates or businesses closing or whatever it may be, that would be economic. Social, cultural, changes in attitudes of people, changes in how, say, Generation Z and millennials perceive things versus, say, the baby boomers or the traditionalists. Any of those things that come up, those would be fair game to be outside of the university or the division. Technologically, pretty much that's pretty self-explanatory. Or if they bring up any other competitive decisions and actions that other colleges are taking, that would be outside of the boundaries of the institution. So here is what your SWOT analysis will look like. You will have one for Indiana State, and you will have another one for Appalachian State. And we're preparing for a deeper dive into enrollment, data, and trends. So the strengths and weaknesses will be internal. What do you see as a strength based upon the article or based upon the video? And what do you see or hear as an opportunity or threat? They may not come out and say, well, this is an opportunity or threat, but you have to sometimes read between the lines as we advance in the program. Here's an example of St. Cloud State University, and it's part of their strategic plan. They use the SWOT, just to give you a real example here. And it's probably really too small for you to read, but if you look, if you can, get maybe a magnifying glass, but you look at the strengths, like our people and their shared values or the shared focus, a degree on the student body and campus, and they have a very nice campus. Your weaknesses then, you know, a lack of a brand, like what does St. Cloud stand for? No one really knows. So it doesn't have a really distinctive brand. Branding comes from inside the institution. If you look at the opportunities, growing public interest in educational value and transparent pricing. Now remember, pricing though is something that they themselves can do internally. So you know, they're kind of lopping into something else there, so we've got to be careful. But we have to say that anything like changing models on how we price education, that might be a really good area of consideration for opportunity. And similarly, if you look at the threats here, regional and online competitors, right? PES plus C, and there it's right there. So when you examine it, be very sure that your strengths and weaknesses are internal, and your opportunities and threats are external. And also keep in mind, an opportunity can also be a threat. So it really depends sometimes on how you define it and what the organizational mindset is and its culture. Here's some strength examples. Human resources, a little bit bigger for you. Size of the college, its skill level, its faculty, staff, and employees. Branding, if they're consistently appealing to minority students, that could be a really strong strength for that institution. Maybe their financial situation, all right? Maybe they don't have to discount too much, like we've talked about in the previous section. Student support, and the amount of student clubs and events. And also maybe they're super efficient, maximum use of a resource, and they have skill in IT. They're really good at utilizing Banner software. That's one of the more popular software packages across colleges and universities, because they have financial aid modules, they have student modules, they have all kinds of modules, and maybe they have a really good team dedicated to that. And maybe they have top teaching talent. Weakness is not necessarily the opposite of the strengths. It can be other things that surface. And here we have some of the same kinds of things that could be an example, but operations cumbersome process, and maybe we have too many adjuncts. Again, not that any individual adjunct is bad or good, but that if we look at the research, if we have too many adjuncts, what occurs is oftentimes students are not retained as well, and it's only because the adjuncts don't know of all the resources that are available for students. And we're talking about, you know, in the larger freshman classes in some of the state universities particularly. And here's another example again. So bringing it down so it looks like more of a matrix. What is the strengths? Internal processes, internal capabilities, personnel talent, resources, anything that's difficult for competitors to replicate. So solid core values and really legitimate, not just saying that we value these things, but we really are. And how creative we are, because we have some really talented people in the use of social media, and they're able to actually overcome any biases in using predictive modeling. That would be a strength. And then areas of vulnerability, weaknesses. So a consistent problem with our consolidated financial index or ratio, which is one of the key barometers in higher ed. If your CFI is not up to snuff, it really does not bode well for financiers or for your long-term chances and longevity. Let's just put it that way. So board members are all alumni, which could suggest myopic vision. So if you have too many you know, just former graduates or alum, they may not see the bigger picture. And likewise, here's again going into the external threats and or opportunities and threats. So what are the political, economic, and social, cultural, technological forces and competitive forces that could be changing? Well, state funding for higher education is declining. And so, but since the private college never relied on state aid, it's able to cut its tuition when state-supported competitors cannot. So that could be an opportunity for us, just saying. Or there's a threat. And that is, okay, so with all these things that are trending, how might the university be adversely impacted? So we already know the state of Ohio high school graduation is declining, and underserved students then are being aggressively targeted by our competitors. So at the end, this is just a little thing about the Appalachian State, because you know, a little competitive rivalry here, and Indiana State. So now this is your video, 1 hour video is embedded here, and it's also in your course. Good luck. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about it. All right, thank you.